intimate conversation spaces, welcoming entryways, cozy living rooms. Where did they all disappear to? And correct me if I'm wrong, but a spatial design shouldn't have you staring at your kitchen sink and bin from every single angle of your ground floor living space, right? So let me know if you're looking around your home and feeling like a giant echoey void is where you currently live.
Hello! Hello! How are you?
Property developers have spent the last 4 decades completely erasing character in home design and also really aggressively pushing open plan living as a luxury feature, when in reality it's just a cheaper way to build. But you shouldn't have to launch a massive, crazy renovation just to fix developers' lazy layouts. So today I'm sharing 10 spatial hacks to fix a sterile floor plan and reclaim your space. Hopefully. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Jacqueline. I'm an interior designer with a background in interior architecture. And here we talk about interior design, home decor, if you hadn't already guessed, art, and even architecture. So with that being said, let's jump in. So let's just quickly talk about how we actually got here, because I can promise you humanity didn't just think, oh, we want to live in plain boxes all of a sudden. In my opinion, across the US, developers have perfected the art of simplifying the construction of a home and squeezing every last dollar out of a floor plan. Whilst in the UK, where land and space are at a premium, I find that new builds tend to have this new philosophy of if a human can physically fit and stand in a room, then the room's technically big enough. Yeah, if you're from the UK, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And the result of this is we end up with boxy spaces, awkward circulation, and layouts. And because these spaces have very little architectural character to begin with, the burden falls entirely on furniture and decor to create personality. But at the same time, you're not wanting to overclutter the space, so there's a bit of a dilemma there. So sometimes it's actually the shell of the building that's causing the issues, and other times it's actually the way we display our furniture. So the way I've kind of concocted this video is half of the fixes include some kind of renovation, and the other half include no kind of renovation whatsoever, because I know a lot of you are renting too. So if we take a look at this floor plan, you might not think that much is wrong, if anything is wrong at all, to be honest. But the first fix in this layout is by using up more of the space there, as it's already quite sparse and that can make a room feel quite cold. I get the immediate instinct when you're staring at a blank room is to push up all of the furniture onto the walls. I get that, like you're clearing space for a school disco. But I'm here to gently ask you to please step away from the walls. Shoving all of your furniture up against the walls doesn't actually make a room feel bigger like a lot of people might think. It actually just creates an empty giant void in the middle, and you can actually be utilising that space instead. So by moving the sofas and armchairs forward, you'll actually be creating areas of conversation and allowing better flow through this area at the back. Furniture should help define how a space functions, always remember that. Bringing in furniture from the edges often makes a room feel larger, actually because you're creating layers, not just a giant, empty no man's land in the centre for everyone to stare at. If you're also dealing with this in an open plan living space, another thing you can do to add layers is to add a wall. I know there's a lot of hate for open plan concepts at the moment, and I don't personally hate them or anything like that. As a designer, I love spaces that flow, but sometimes flow needs some kind of structure. When there are no walls, no subtle divisions of any kind, and no sense of transition between cooking, dining, working, and relaxing, every activity starts competing for your attention. Your sofa ends up staring at the dishwasher, your dining table becomes a home office, and everything just starts to feel quite visually draining, even though you don't actually have a lot of things in it. Our brains naturally look for boundaries. We like to understand where one space ends and where one space begins, even if there's no physical wall there. For example, in this kitchen and living area, to make the living room cozier, I would actually implement a small half wall just here, with columns either side. And you can decorate it with plants, books, lamps, all that stuff. So you can still see the kitchen area and have conversations, but it just creates more of a cocooning feel to the living space. Also at the moment, half walls are kind of trending. I don't know if you know that, but I know older houses had them and it kind of went away as a trend, but they're popular again. So I kind of thought I'd include that just as a fun design choice, really. And whilst I'm at it, I kind of like to imagine a house in every kind of scenario. So let's imagine there's a party in this house. If we map out the circulation, people are going to be wanting to sit in the living space and have conversations, naturally, or kids playing games on the TV. And doors here would mean that everyone is traipsing through the living room to get to the garden where the party or barbecue is happening. So if I were to really change this around now, rather than the door here, I would change this to large windows that overlook the garden, so that you're maximising on views, and also keeping with the party example, anyone in the living room will still feel like they're part of the party. In this scenario as well, the garden is south facing, so by also adding these windows, we're allowing the space to have more sunlight in the daytime, which helps it to feel less boxed in as well. And I would instead move the door to the corner of the kitchen here. That way we've gotten rid of this awkward route through the living room. And people can mingle in the kitchen instead and maybe nick a few snacks whilst they're at it. And whilst we're on the topic of doors, another thing I think is a cost-cutting way to design, and we've unfortunately become accustomed to it, is by just having archways. Sometimes I think we can really do with having doors that we can close. We all love that romantic, airy look and that kind of seamless flow, but let's be real for a second, modern houses are loud. Just say you're working from home in the study and your kid is blaring SpongeBob on the TV in the room next door. It's not exactly conducive, so to fix this, we simply make these areas completely zoned off from one another. This is where actual doors save the day. So between the living room and the study, I'd actually place a wall here and a door as well. Okay, let's talk about this bloody kitchen because this bad layout here will frustrate you every single day. We've already put in a half wall, and in my opinion, I would move the bin to opposite the wall in a cabinet, just so it's hidden and out of the way and not constricting the circulation. But let's actually look at what's also happening here. The fridge is tucked away in a far corner, the hob is on the same back wall, and the sink is across the room by the half wall, which whilst it is technically keeping with the golden triangle formation, it's a very awkward one, especially with this ridiculously sized kitchen island in the middle. But the most common offender here is forcing a kitchen island into a space that just doesn't have the room for it. An island needs typically about 800 millimeters clearance, or 32 inches, on all sides so that it doesn't feel stifling. And more importantly, to function properly. Squeezing one in stifles your circulation, and once you open the dishwasher, you're going to be crammed. Also, the fridge would open onto the back door, which will just be annoying. So I'd move the fridge here, and ideally your kitchen sink will be underneath a window. In terms of plumbing, having as short as possible waste pipe from the sink to the drains is not only effective, but it's also going to be the cheapest solution. But, you can really do anything you want with that. And I'd move the oven to the left side wall for more counter space as well. And also, in case you're cooking some very fragrant food or something, you can swing open the door and let those aromas out a bit more. Also, if you're sitting in the dining room, I think it's better to look out onto the sink and a window, as opposed to a large hob and kitchen hood. But that's just my personal preference. When you step into the current floor plan, your eyes bounce around because there's nowhere to land, as it really does lack a focal point. Just as a guide, every room needs a clear visual anchor. Whether that's the window in the kitchen, a feature fireplace and media wall in the living room, or a bold bar cart with art hanging above in the dining room, to give the layout purpose, so keep that in mind when you start placing furniture in each room. Another way you may not be fully optimizing your layout is by not utilizing awkward spaces fully. I'm sure some of you would have seen the Twitter or Reddit posts where people ask, "What the hell do I do with this space?" And it's usually a photo of a awkwardly shaped room or alcove. And yeah, it's kind of become a meme. Like here, for example, this person has an awkward void above a staircase, which is coming from basement to kitchen level, so they can't really help this area as they need it for the staircase below. I would get a custom bookshelf made for this specific area and quite literally fill it from base to ceiling to fully make use of that awkward space. Don't just buy a bookcase, literally get one custom built by a carpenter because it will look more polished as a result. And just as an example in this floor plan, let's say this is the understairs area in the home. These dead zones are usually the cavernous void sitting right under the staircase, in my opinion. That's in most instances from what I've seen. So for this, don't just look at it like a storage space. Really think what your specific needs are, or could you make it a focal point itself? Leaving awkward spaces empty or leaving gaps and not fully using up every inch of space is one of the biggest issues when it comes to spatial planning. You're really missing out on extra room that you could be using. If it were me, I would make this a wine rack, a wine cellar, if you will. Not sure what that says about me, but we move. My point is, really utilize every inch of space you have in your home. Now let's address another major spatial crime in this layout. Spatial monotony, whether that's the furniture or the architecture itself. Developers love macro-sizing features to make new build properties feel luxurious online. So they give you a monolithic fireplace or an absolutely giant corner bathtub. And you're left in the space thinking, well, because these features are large, I have to match that with the type of furniture I get. But this is where that monotony comes in. Fighting bloated developer architecture with equally bloated furniture just creates a kind of heavy energy to the room. If you aren't renovating, let the massive builder feature be the only heavy anchor in the space, and balance it with slender furniture. Certainly nothing from Costco. Anyone in the UK will understand that Costco furniture in UK homes is fucking massive. It's crazy. So here I've changed out the sofa and armchairs for smaller ones and a round coffee table and side table instead, which will help with the flow. And the same with the dining room and study, just things that will allow the space to breathe a bit more. I'm just making sure there's some kind of visual differentiation between the sizing of furniture and architectural features in the home. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is treating a developer's initial floor plan like it's the law. If the drawing says living room or study, they feel legally obligated to furnish it that way. But take a look at what's happening here in this plan. We have this open area labelled as the primary living room, while a smaller enclosed space away as a study. But if your goal is to actually have an ultra cozy, intimate space to wind down and watch movies at night, forcing your sofa into that kitchen cum living area is going to feel less cozy than if you placed the living room here. If that's the case, I'd actually place the dining table here instead and make this a kitchen island, not a half wall, and add some bar stools to create a more cohesive kitchen dining space. And I'd probably make these windows folding doors too, in case there's a barbecue and you can dish up on the table, buffet style, and then dine al fresco. To fix a layout that feels completely mismatched to your lifestyle, you need to ignore the developer's text and swap the room functions around. So shift your main lounge area into that smaller enclosed study footprint, where you can lean into moody wall colours and soft ambient lighting to create a deeply comforting den. Then you can swap around the other spaces. Always design for how you want to live, not based on what a developer named a room. I feel like one of the last things we need to address is the entryway. Take a look at the entrance on the floor plan. It's completely blank and unutilised, which means the moment you walk through the door with coats, bags and shoes, you have absolutely nowhere to put them. In an ideal renovation, I'd frame out a boot room just jutting out the side here so that you can enter and then put your things away neatly. But if you're not looking to tear down walls, I can completely understand that. We can update this exact layout by turning this underworked wall here into a high function storage space. I would put something like this, here, to place all of your shoes, keys, and coats in a designated area. I know it's something small, but what tends to happen if you don't do this, you'll end up bringing everything into these areas here, and that will swallow up the space and in turn make the circulation a bit more difficult. Everything does have a knock-on effect. I really do think that we can all maximize on the space we have and amp up that wow factor, rather than just sticking to a sterile floor plan from the developers, and instead actually create a unique space tailored to you. But what do you think? Is there anything that really annoys you with your spatial layout? Do let me know down below. Please leave a like and hype the video if you enjoyed it. I really appreciate that. And if you need help fulfilling your own design dreams, I've left our website in the description. If you want to keep the design inspiration flowing though, I'll leave a video at the end that I think you'll enjoy. But that's it for today's video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!